Hi, I'm Steve Rosales, and welcome to this edition of Belmont Journal. Today we have a chat with the chair, with our Select Board Chair, Elizabeth Dionne. Today's Wednesday, April 9, 2025. Welcome, Chairman Dionne. Can I call you Elizabeth?
Absolutely. Good to see you again, and thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think. Don't thank me quite yet. Let's see where it goes. But
it is always, local media is so important, and especially after an election where we unfortunately had low turnout. Local elections count, and you're a really important source of information for that.
Well, we had elections for school committee, we had elections for select board, we had elections for moderator, we had elections for
Board of
health, library, electrical, light department, and of course town meeting. There's a whole crew of those, but you know, for the ones that were successful, congratulations. For those that were unsuccessful, you know, try it again. You just gotta stick your hat in the ring.
And also thank them for running. Contested elections matter in a democracy. These aren't coronations.
Well, that's true. That's true. We had some stuff, and there's one. The moderator race was very close. I think there was a 9 or 10 vote difference, and you know, they'll go through the recount process. I understand.
If the petitions were all submitted and certified today by the town clerk, I think the Board of Registrars is meeting tomorrow to determine when to do the recount. So a recount is happening. So if you have a 9-vote margin, it just goes to prove every vote matters.
Every vote matters. That's true. That's true. So, all right, let's get right in it. We have a limited amount of time. It's now April 9th. I think our first town meeting is going to be in May. Everything going to be in May. That's new, right? Not May and June. Everything in May.
Everything in May for two reasons. The first is that we need to close the books on our fiscal year June 30th. And by waiting to do a lot of, to resolve a lot of matters in June, it put real pressure on closing the books in a timely fashion. So that was the first reason, just to do it all in May, as opposed to doing some in May and then some in June. The second reason is that a lot of people would really like to travel in June and would really like to take vacation. And we just thought this might work better for town meeting to do it all out, to do it in May. So this is an experiment. It's the first year we've done it. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, we may go back. People may love it, they may hate it, but we're trying it this year for those two reasons.
Back in the day, it was April. So there you go. And then, I don't know, several years back, then they shifted it to May, and with the financial ones, the money items, I think some point in June. But
yeah, so, and again, it was causing us problems in terms of closing our books at the end of the fiscal year.
Well, okay, so traditionally we would all show up in person, live and in person. COVID's over, but apparently COVID customs are going to continue, I understand. We're going to have a hybrid format. What's going on there?
So what's happening there is hybrid formats had to be authorized by the state legislature, which they were during COVID. So we held some COVID meetings and some hybrid meetings, fully remote and then hybrid. But then a year ago, our IT department was in a state of flux, and we just didn't have the staffing either last spring or in the fall with special town meeting to hold a hybrid. What people need to understand is that a hybrid meeting is basically 2 town meetings being conducted simultaneously. So we're conducting an in-person town meeting, we're conducting a remote town meeting, and we're trying to merge the two. So it's actually harder than holding either one separately. Town meeting has spoken loud and clear that this is what they want, and so the select board honored that, and we were just waiting for the legislature to extend the authorization, which they did at the end of March. But people need to understand that this imposes an operations cost on a very tight budget. So money that we spend running a hybrid town meeting is money that's not available for other priorities or initiatives. So we heard the town meeting speak. Mike Widmer pulled them while he was still moderator. Town meeting wanted this, but there is a cost.
Well, okay, and so who decides whether it's hybrid or whether it's in person?
Ultimately, it's the select board that's made that decision. So the moderator makes the recommendation, but the select board has the authority to sign and issue the warrant. And the warrant is where we advertise whether it's hybrid, in person, or fully remote. And we'll be signing that warrant tomorrow night.
Well, put me down as I don't like hybrid. It's very convenient because I'm sitting, like remote. We just had a remote one. I thought it was pretty important stuff that we had remote. But from my side, if you're looking at a computer screen, it's number one, it's boring. Number two, you can't read the room.
Yeah.
You can't read whether people are nodding, whether they're agreeing, they're smiling, they're rolling their eyes. I mean, I'm an advocate. I'm an attorney by trade, and I advocate.
Yeah.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you do. But I like to look people in the eye. I think people like to be looked in the eye. And I think if you were just a regular citizen who's not a town meeting member and watching, I would want to know if my town meeting member or my elected representative is actually sitting in the room listening, or at least being exposed to the debate, as opposed to being who knows where, quite frankly. And if you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. I mean, Congress does it. COVID's over as far as I'm concerned. Wash your hands, you know, don't cough in people's face.
Yeah,
but COVID's over.
We are certainly not, Arlington has a fully in-person town meeting, and I did speak with the chair of their select board last week, who they hold a fully in-person town meeting and then have a separate room for people with health or accessibility issues. But it's in the same building, actually, as they're holding their town meeting. There are health and accessibility issues to which I'm sympathetic. What does concern me is we really do ask that if people can show up in person, that they do so for precisely the reasons that you outline. I don't want to be the police. I don't want to police whether people are staying home for legitimate reasons or not. So it is an honor system. Unfortunately, the last time we had a hybrid meeting, fully a third of people chose to stay home. Again,
of course,
I think
I was going to bring that up, but you beat me to it.
And some of those I think were completely legitimate reasons. There are people who do have, whether it's mobility issues or true health issues, and we do want to be sure that their voices can be included in town meeting. But the flip side of that is, if there are accessibility issues, we ought to be addressing that in the room. If someone literally can't get into the room, and the new building's fully ADA compliant, but still, we ought to be making sure that people can show up in person, if at all possible. And I think we do. The one thing that was a little disturbing to me when we first chose to have a fully in-person meeting last spring is there were people who pretty much said, well, I was told that if I ran for town meeting, I didn't actually have to show up. And that's really not what town meeting is about. Again, I don't want to be judging, I don't want to be policing, but I do agree that meeting in person, it's different. People have body language. The room has a current, an ebb and a flow to it. And to be effective, it is better to be there. But that said, I always said that if hybrid were an option, based on our staffing, that I would support it, so I did.
Okay, so we have a new moderator, at least until the recount. But it looks, unless the recount rolls it over, we have a new moderator. Comments on the new moderator? I mean, we've had a standing moderator for what, 16 years, who had a certain way of doing things. Do you have any idea what Mr. Crowley might be doing, or who he's appointing, or what's he going to do?
I really don't. I think something that people don't understand about the moderator position is it's supposed to be entirely apolitical. Literally, you are the moderator. You're not supposed to be putting your finger on the scale on any policy issue. You're just trying to ensure a fair, efficient, and open town meeting process. So there's a lot of work that happens in terms of that process. The moderator should be talking to people who are presenting on the floor of town meeting. The moderator should be putting together the order of business. So we are committed, the select board is committed to doing as much as we can to help the new moderator in this process. But it is a difference. We had a moderator who was very, very expert in what he did, and any new moderator is going to have to get up to speed. And it'll be no different this time. One impact of that is that we closed the warrant much earlier than we typically do. We opened and closed the warrant. We opened it December 16th and closed it January 13th, and sent every town meeting member a notice that we were doing this and why. And the reason was we knew whoever it was, there was going to be a new moderator. This is not going to be as smooth a town meeting as we may have had in the past. It's just not going to be. You couldn't expect it. It's not fair. We did get at least one citizen's petition by the deadline, and then notice of some other bylaws that are warrant articles that might be coming in. We received some late warrant articles, and at least as of right now, this could change tomorrow before we sign the warrant, but we're not accepting them. There will be a special town meeting in the fall because the town has too much business not to do it. But we already have 6 very fully scheduled nights. And unless town meeting raises its hand and says that they're willing to meet another night or 2 in May, the late breaking warrant articles need to be put on the special town meeting agenda in the fall.
So what do we got? We got anything good? Well, what are the hot things? There's a budget, but okay. But what do we got to look forward to, at least in the May,
Hands down.
other than housekeeping?
So there's a lot. We'll be voting the capital budget. We'll be voting the Community Preservation Act projects. We'll be voting the revolving funds, these things that we always do. The single most important thing that town meeting does every year is vote the budget. I think we currently have that slated for May 19th, Monday, May 19th. The good news that I have, and this is really wonky, but I cannot emphasize what a sea change this is for Belmont in terms of doing business. For the first time ever, we did revenue-based budgeting. That means that we gave the school committee a number, the select board and the town finance director and the town administrator gave the school committee a number and said, we need you to live in this. This is what we have. Now, what we gave them was more generous than we gave the town, which has been the case for the last umpteen years. So the town year over year is living within a 2.5% increase. The schools got a 5.6% increase. But the point is that the school committee accepted that. They adjusted staffing to live within it. I think we have a new superintendent who is taking a much more cooperative approach to budgeting than the prior superintendent did. And we promised voters when we went out for the override last year that that override would last at least 3 years. In order for the override to last 3 years, for fiscal 26, the school committee got a 5.6% increase. For fiscal 27, they get a 5.2% increase. For fiscal 28, they're going to get a 4.9% increase. So we're controlling the rate of growth. We have never done this before. What would usually happen, this is 2 years ago, so prior to this new era of cooperation, the school committee asked us for an 11% increase. We said we can't possibly do that, we'll give you 9. And then the superintendent and not all the school committee, but certain members squawked, you've cut our budget. We were thinking, we gave you a 9% increase. How is that cutting your budget? Well, it's because you didn't give us everything we asked for. That's how budgeting has happened in the past. That's part of the reason that we're in this challenging situation. I don't want to say that there weren't real needs. There are real needs. We have to contend with a lot of state and federal mandates around special education, English language learners. There are a lot of mandates that we are given that are not funded. So there are a lot of restrictions that we have. And I will say on a per pupil basis, we don't provide the same level of funding as many of our peer communities. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
Well, don't start me on the per pupil. That's been a thorn in my side for 30 years. Because if you go by, and I said in front of town meeting several years ago, I think it means a lot of nothing. If you look at every rating system, whether it be Boston Magazine, the Globe, U.S. News and World Report, Belmont Public Schools, it's still the Belmont Public Schools, not the Belmont private schools, quite frankly. Yeah. And I'm a product of it, and my brothers and sisters were, and my 3 kids did. But I've lived here, 65 years, and I've paid taxes for, well, since I bought my first house here in, 1980. So I paid my share and fulfilled my social contract, my part of the social contract, and will continue to do so. But Cambridge spends $30,000 a student. Waltham spends, 27,000. These are numbers I remember. Lowell and Lawrence spend, $35,000 a person. Does that make them a better quality school system than Belmont? I would say Belmont, makes good use of its money.
Well, consistently, one of the top indicators for school success is parental engagement. So it's
we do have
it's
a
very
very
highly
involved person.
to the parents and the families in this community. They genuinely care, not just about their own children, but about all the children. They really they volunteer. They put in the time, the effort, the love. You asked about good news stories. I said the collaborative budget process. Incredible good news story that's very wonky. You wouldn't realize if you didn't know how budgeting worked in the past or didn't work in the past.
I knew how it worked back in the mid-'90s when I sat there.
So whatever had happened in the interim, it had gone off the rails.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was there in 95 to 98, my late mother used to call it the golden age of Belmont politics, but she was a little biased. But the point I'm going to make is that for the first time, the school budget exceeded the, quote, town budget. Used to be a 50-50 split.
Yeah, we're nowhere close to that now.
Well, I asked a question a couple of years ago. as to what the story is. So you look on the budget and it says, oh, Belmont Schools, they want 70 million. But that doesn't include what now that used to be in the budget is shared services, where they sort of blend facilities, pension, debt service, insurance, all these other things into. So the big number, according to town administrator's budget summary, is that out of $165 million to spend in the pie, the schools are getting in excess of 65%.
Yeah, that's true.
And the town side, if you would, police, fire, DPW, health, administration, general government,
Yeah.
gets 33%. And if you want to look at those numbers, so you say that you gave them a number. I think an argument could be made that the school number that you gave them should be even smaller, because you're starving, despite the good efforts and
Yeah.
the methodology
Yeah.
shift. The town side is being starved, in my opinion.
The town side's absolutely being starved. We have cut and cut and cut. We are down head count. We had to eliminate 4 DPW positions this year.
Sure.
Just so that we could bring our DPW workers, and they're the frontline workers in the town, were well underwater if we looked at the comps to other towns.
Sure.
We have that same situation in other departments where we don't want to be, we can't afford to be the best paying municipality, but we certainly don't want to be the worst. You know, we try to be in the middle of what we consider our peer communities. And the only way that we've been able to adjust compensation, to be fair, is to eliminate open positions. But every open position that's eliminated is work that's not being done.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
And those
just,
are roads
just
that
drive
aren't being
the
repaired.
roads. Just drive the roads.
Roads, sidewalks. We have a very stressed fire department right now. We have a stressed police department.
Well,
we have a stressed town administrator's office.
I want police and I want fire. And so I'm looking at this. So the budget for the schools, it says all in with shared services, 107.5 million, 65+% of the operating budget. However, I find that there's recurring grants of another 6.3 million, gives them 113 million. And then revolving accounts. I don't know where they're in there, but there's 3.8 million in revolving accounts the schools control. So if you add them all up together, if my math is right, and there's a reason why I'm not an accountant, you're about $117 million for fewer students than we had just several years ago.
I do want to back up and say a few things, though. Again,
it could be tougher. I mean, to me, just to close the loop, it
Yeah.
seems to me if you took several $7 million out of the school side of the budget and readjusted it over to the town side of the budget, we'd have a better supported police department, fire department, and we'd have our streets fixed a little bit better than the horrendous shape they're in. You just happen to be the head of the person but that's where you get the credit, and you're on the show now.
Blame. That's true. I get the credit, I get the blame. Let me back up and say the school budget, at least I think approximately, and I'm just being approximate, a third of it is not under our control. Those are special education entitlements and English language learner entitlements. So if you were to take that money out, it would come out of what's remaining to educate the rest of the students. So it would actually have an impact that would not be proportionate.
Unless they're top-heavy with administration.
So
the voters know,
Yeah.
town meeting gives them a number.
Yes.
They're going to give them a number of 70 million plus whatever shit. They just have a hunk number. What they do with it
What I want to
is
say
up to the school department
is
to do.
I have seen the current superintendent look and look and look and sharpen her pencil and really, really try to have student-facing positions. She genuinely cares about students. She genuinely cares about educational outcomes. And the school committee had to make some tough decisions this year. They're going to have to make more tough decisions next year. So I absolutely hear you. And where a lot of that growth came from, and this was the prior schools administration, not the current school administration, frankly, they had pretty much a free check policy to send students out of district. And I, as a special education attorney, as the mother of a son who was sent out of district, thought that was completely inappropriate. We wanted to bring our son back in district, and we're told no, the schools couldn't support him. I don't think they wanted to support him. So we have invested money in the last year or so in both building up our special education offerings so that students can stay in district and be part of the community. It's better for the students, it's better for their families, it's better for the environment so that we're not driving all over the state. I mean, my son had to drive 45 minutes each way each day for his school, and I'm grateful for that he had that opportunity, but that was not a good use of resources. So I am thrilled that these students can stay in district, but it also helps us try to whittle back just the outrageous number of students that were outplaced. And those are very expensive placements. And again, it's not the student's fault. It's the district's fault. And again, prior administration, not the current administration, for not building the infrastructure that we needed to support those students appropriately. So it's going to take time, but there's a shift. And what I've heard is what's been established at the middle school is fabulous. The one at the high school is still growing. But if you can keep, we can't keep every student in district. There are some needs where it doesn't make sense for us to recreate the wheel. But there's a big group of students who we could keep in district, who could then participate in athletics or music or some of the classes that we offer. So my son really was disengaged from Belmont. It was not what we wanted for him.
Well, I'm certainly not advocating. When I'm railing about the expense of the school side, I'm certainly not trying to...
I'm trying to explain where some of that expense came from. That it was a series of decisions that were made by a prior administration, and the current administration is doing their best to reverse it. It's going to take some time, but I have seen really impressive movement in a very short period of time. I also want to talk about shared services. It is true that you could say that shared services hide some of what we spend on the schools, but I have to give the school committee credit.
Well, they do. I've said
no,
it.
But what I'm saying is the town is better at running these shared services than the school department was. We run them more efficiently. We run them better. So I give the school committee credit for relinquishing control of things that used to be in shared services and trusting the town that we can and will do it better and more efficiently.
Used to be in their budget, their responsibility.
Exactly. But they, frankly, I think they had more custodians than they needed. Our facilities department does a better, more efficient job. Our facilities department has better expertise for maintenance. Our finance director has better expertise when it comes to healthcare and other areas. We just have better expertise in the town. And the school committee, to their credit, recognized it and relinquished control of those things to us. Again, the good news story that we have is a much more collaborative relationship with the school committee than we've had in recent years, because we're all working toward the same goal, which is the most efficient spending that we can find.
Okay.
And it's going to take time. You asked for a good news story. This is another wonky good news story. Our finance director, Jennifer Hewitt, is as good as they come. Part of the reason that we could give the schools we could do revenue-based budgeting and give them a number and they recognized they had to live within it is because she, in the almost 3 years that she has been here, has meticulously built both data going backwards and projections going forwards. So we now have 3 and 5 year lookouts of what our numbers will be that are pretty reliable and that pretty much everybody accepts. So unfortunately, we see a tsunami coming, but at least we see it coming in a very accurate and consistent and predictable way. And when everybody's looking and agreeing on the same set of facts, then town meeting can make the tough decisions it has to make. If you don't have a common set of facts, it's really tough to make good decisions.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good news.
It is good news. It's kind of, I call it the best of times and the worst of times. The best of times is that if you look at the Collins Center report from almost 3 years ago, it's amazing how much we've accomplished in under 3 years. That's the good news story. The bad news story is that we still have, we have another looming fiscal cliff that we have to figure out how to address.
Well, I don't know. If the chatter I receive walking around town, or my wife walks around town, or down at the Star Market, or out and about, another override isn't going to sit very well.
I have to agree with you.
I think it's going to go down in flames.
So what I will say is both of the select board candidates, both of the moderator candidates, both of whom knocked on a lot of doors, have all told me the number one issue is the tax burden. Belmont is in the ignominious position, and I do say ignominious, of being, I think, ranked number 7 for the absolute tax burden of municipalities in Belmont. Our actual tax burden is higher depending on a different metric. So if we're number 7, our peer communities are the Welsleys or the Westons. Their take-home median pay is almost double ours. So if you look at our tax burden as a percentage of take-home pay, we're 1 or 2 in the state. That's not where we want to be.
No, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be number 1 in that.
So that's why I think town meeting, I am concerned. We've had in recent years people who've ignored the budget process and decided to introduce amendments on the floor of town meeting, or not on the floor, but introduce amendments that were then discussed on the floor of town meeting to augment the school budget. And there's no money. There's no money to do that. If you want to augment the student budget or the school's budget further than we've already given them, then tell them, do you want me to cut the library? Do you want me to cut the senior center? What am I supposed to cut to make that happen. So I really sincerely hope that town meeting members will be responsible and honor the budget process that we went through this year.
It'll be a tough vote, but we'll see. It's
Yeah.
easier if everybody was in person, but I'll get off that soapbox.
That ship has sailed.
We got some, there's been a lot of discussion as of late, the planning board, Belmont Center, commercial housing, whether it makes money, whether it loses
Yeah.
money, and I saw a concept drawing of big buildings up and down Leonard Street, which doesn't make me very happy to see that, but go ahead.
So let me go back and
Do you
say.
have any comments on that? We got about 3 minutes to go.
Oh my goodness, the time has flown by.
But you
It
can
always
get off
does.
quick.
It always does. So quickly, Belmont Center, when I ran for select board, started running 2.5 years ago, my platform was pro-business, pro-development, or pro-Belmont, I would say, pro-development that is beneficial to Belmont. The reason for that is I saw no way, we can't keep raising taxes endlessly. We do need revenue. And the only way that I saw to boost that was to try to increase. Right now we have a 95.5 residential commercial tax base. The only way that I saw to improve that is to have more commercial development. In general, that's a very popular idea. I think every select board candidate ran on that platform. Both moderator candidates ran on that platform. All current sitting select board members ran on that platform. Belmont Center, we put an aggressive schedule out there to propose a zoning overlay that would allow more development as of right. People were concerned that it was too aggressive. My view was we were going to let the process drive the schedule. When we got the second round of comments back from the consultant, the town planner said these are not ready. So the select board is not putting this on the warrant for May. This will not be considered in May. I doubt we'll have a special in June, because to have a special in June would get rid of the vacation time we promised everybody. I hope and expect that the select board will set the date for the special in the fall. My expectation is that everything will be in final form for what we're proposing to town meeting by the end of June, which gives us months for people to look at it, kick the tires, see what they think. Some people don't like what's for Belmont Center, others really like it. At least on the northwest side, the same side of the street as the old CVS building or the Bank of America building. That would go up to 3 stories as of right, which is where some of the buildings already are. So it's not quite the monster that people think it's going to be. The other side, there could be more density. We're out of time, but just know there's going to be a full vetting of this, a full discussion of
Well,
it.
not to the fall, so there'll be more to come.
There's lots of time.
More to come on that.
Lots of time, lots of input. But I agree that if it doesn't make financial sense, then we shouldn't do it. And to make financial sense, it's got to have a predominantly commercial component.
Well, it's always been where to put it. Everybody likes commercial development. The question is,
Somewhere
we don't
else.
have very much room. Well, it's not even somewhere else. We just have a very few.
We really don't.
We don't have open land like some of the others. We don't have rooms for big office complexes. We don't have
The two most
industrial
profitable
parks.
things we could have, so our most profitable building right now is 68 Leonard, which is medical services. If we could find space, and our market analysis shows that we could support 200-room hotels, hugely profitable for Belmont. So that is, we're still looking at hotel spaces.
We'll see how that works.
I also want to get some more medical services buildings, because those are also very profitable for us. And people want these things. They want medical services in town. They want hotels in town for family and friends to stay at. So it's not just boosting the town's bottom line. It's giving people in-town services that they want.
Okay, on that note, we're out of time. Too bad we couldn't do that. We'll do this more often.
I can't
What can
believe the
tell
time
you?
went by that fast.
It rolls back so quick.
Steve, it really does. Good
So
to see you.
I thank you.
Hey,
That
thank
was
you.
Elizabeth Dionne, Chair of the Select Board here in Belmont, talking about a range of things. So we're out of time. I'm Steve Rosales, Belmont Journal, for Joanne Zuvelis and all the other Crackerjack crew in the other room. Till next time, take care.